In Uncut Gems, Adam Sandler plays a jeweler with a gambling addiction, constantly seeking the next big win while avoiding the many people he owes money to. Now, after purchasing an opal from Ethiopia, his next big win could be something really special. Uncut Gems is a brilliant film about greed, addiction, crime, and more. It starts off a little on the slow side, introducing the characters and the scenario bit by bit. As the film progresses, the stakes and tension increase too. There's a constant build-up of momentum throughout the film, meaning that the film is always getting better and better. This results in a great anxiety-filled finale that makes you consider all the possible outcomes. While Uncut Gems can be a little predictable in places, there are some genuine surprises in the film too. The writer and director do a great job at subverting expectations, and even when the obvious, inevitable thing happens, it still happens in a satisfying, dramatic or thrilling way. The way in which the film mixes elements of crime, drama and thriller all into one works really well. There's constantly something happening. At most times there are multiple story elements converging into one, adding to the frantic, anxious moments. One such scene, fairly late in the film, shows Adam Sandler struggling to cope with it all, finally realizing that he's done some bad stuff. The fact that the film looks and feels very grounded, realistic and believable helps add to the overall mood and tone. Unlike many films, Uncut Gems looks and feels real. It's gritty and dirty, and the filmmakers clearly took inspiration from the films of the 1980s. It looks like an old film, with added film grain, murky colours and more. Then there's the brilliant soundtrack and score, which is very reminiscent of Blade Runner or the movies of John Carpenter. It's odd, but impactful, and it gives Uncut Gems a unique style, look and feel. This is also, without a doubt, Adam Sandler's best performance. He's playing a money and gambling addicted individual with little to no interest in anything other than his own satisfaction. He comes across as aggressive, untrustworthy and selfish, and he's a very believable character. The one slight downside to the character is that the film never acknowledges the addiction or the mental health side of his life. This means that there's little sympathy for the character, and when he could and perhaps should be seen as a victim, he often comes across as just a pain in the backside. In other words, he, as an individual, is blamed for everything, rather than the uncontrollable mental elements within him. The acting and the characters across the board are great though. Every character has some sort of purpose or goal in the film. Their motivations are well realised, meaning you immediately get a sense of who they are, what they want, and there's enough detail and information presented to allow us, the viewers, to root for them, if we choose. It's extra impressive when on the surface, pretty much every character is a somewhat bad person, and yet the film manages to make them likeable and relatable. With great direction and editing that cuts to the key points at just the right time, allowing the build-up of tension to work, Uncut Gems is well constructed and crafted, in front and behind the camera. It's a great film, one I highly recommend. Before I go into a couple of spoiler points, subscribe to my channel to get more content like this. Also, follow me on Twitter and Instagram to get my latest, most up-to-date opinions and thoughts long before I can get them into video form. Now it's time for spoilers, so if you haven't seen Uncut Gems, go and see it and then come back and watch the rest of this. The ending, in which Adam Sandler is killed by a disgruntled debt collector, was inevitable. In retrospect, it was an obvious ending and pretty predictable. However, the film somehow manages to make it surprising, thrilling and impactful despite seeing it coming. It makes you consider numerous possibilities for almost every scenario in the film, and it keeps you on your toes, even when it takes the more obvious route with its storytelling. That's impressive. One of the standout performances in the film was that of Julia Fox. She was brilliant, and this is her first ever feature film. She plays the girlfriend, mistress character, and she is incredibly likeable, perhaps even the most genuinely likeable person in the film. I was pleased that at the end of the film, she was the one character to really win anything.